Welcome back to Explain America. This is your host, Kyle Becker. Now, former FBI Director James Comey, is he going to escape justice? That is the burning issue on many Americans' minds because he clearly engaged in election interference. He lied to Congress. He obstructed justice. He was a party to illegal leaks, and he needs to be held accountable, and that may include even prison time for the former FBI director. Well, the judges who are overseeing his case have been interfering left and right because they don't like the U.S. attorney that Trump selected to be put in charge of the case. That's because none of the other deep state creatures had the cojones to bring a case against former FBI Director Comey, despite him being guilty as sin. It's clear from the track record and the evidence. The grand jury also thought so. And now the judge, well, he is compelling the grand jury documents to be turned over. Well, he just got egg on his face because the DOJ, it has responded to an order about these grand jury documents and the instructions to the grand jury. And well, this is really embarrassing for the defense. But before we get into this story, please like, share, and comment at Explain America. Join us. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. Now, the U.S. attorney in charge of prosecuting James Comey, Lindsay Halligan, she was selected by Trump in September to serve as the top prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia. And well, she pushed back on multiple criticisms in Wednesday evening court filings, telling the federal judge that, quote, the grand jury was provided the proposed indictment, deliberated, and determined that probable cause existed to believe that the defendant had committed the crimes charged in 2 counts. Now, she also added they were claims that the magistrate judge had misrepresented her comments before the grand jury, and that his opinion attacking the Comey case should be set aside. Well, that's extremely embarrassing because if the defense did do so, well, that is a real problem for this judge, and may have ultimately done the right thing by going with Halligan and hearing her explanation for these grand jury instructions. Now, to go back to that, in case you're not familiar, the DOJ's 2-count indictment was approved by a federal grand jury in Northern Virginia in late September, and it stems from allegations that Comey misled the Senate during his testimony in late September 2020, when he reiterated his May 2017 denial that he had never authorized a leak of information to the media about the Trump-Russia investigation or Clinton-related investigations, when the DOJ says he, in fact, authorized its friend, confidant, and special government employee, Dan Richman, to leak to the media about the FBI's Hillary Clinton investigation. Now, the indictment also alleged that Comey had obstructed Congress by lying to the Senate. Now, Halligan confirmed in federal court on Wednesday that after the grand jury had rejected one of the 3 counts against Comey on September 25th, the indictment was rewritten that day to include only the 2 approved charges and to omit the 1 rejected charge, and that she presented that revised indictment to the grand jury, 4-person, and 1 other grand jury, rather than presenting it again to the full grand jury, before providing that indictment to a magistrate judge. So the magistrate was given both versions of the indictment, the original one with the rejected count included and the revised one with the rejected count omitted. And the jury, 4-person, said on the record that the grand jury had approved 2 counts only. So one of Comey's lawyers, named Michael Dreeben, who was a former member of special counsel Robert Mueller's Trump-Russia investigation, claimed in court on Wednesday that the revelation by Halligan meant there was no legitimate indictment against his client. And that is clearly wrong. So Judge Michael Nachmanoff, the presiding judge, who was nominated by Joe Biden and confirmed by the Senate in 2021, ordered that the Justice Department provide answers about this matter, which is the story that I'm bringing to you right now. So the successful indictment specified 2 counts, false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the United States government, and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. So the matter before us is James Comey. And is he guilty of those 2 charges in that indictment? It doesn't matter what Lindsay Halligan had for breakfast or what she does in her spare time or anything else. is James Comey guilty of those charges? Well, a grand jury found probable cause to do so. So this judge better not pull any shenanigans and let James Comey go despite the law, because if so, he is aiding and abetting in criminal misconduct, and this is inappropriate, and it could be potentially illegal. Judges do not have the right to ignore the law, and if James Comey is guilty, it should not be dismissed. And it is not selective or vindictive prosecution, by the way. James Comey, these counts, these criminal charges, just because they matter to a head of state and government, that doesn't mean he's allowed to skate free. Because, well, are we saying that you're allowed to create crimes or engage in misconduct against the President of the United States simply because the DOJ is very attentive to crimes against the government? No, that is not selective. That is very relevant, and it is about justice, not just for President Trump, but for the American people, because they have the right to have elections without them being interfered with by political operators like James Comey, who weaponized the FBI and sicked his attack dogs on Trump's allies and now wants to go crying in court about the selective and vindictive prosecution. Well, James Comey, you selected yourself with your vindictive behavior against President Trump. So you need to face the charges like a man and explain to us all how you didn't leak this information and interfere in the election. We all are dying to know what your explanation is, and we want justice in this case, just like every other case. So please weigh in with your thoughts. We always appreciate hearing from you at Explain America.